Oftentimes when we're applying new styles, new CSS styles, or we're wanting to manipulate something on our page, we can't figure out why on earth are you not doing what I asked you to do. And so this is designed to introduce you to DevTools, or show you how to use your DevTools, meaning that if I'm in a browser and this works in either Firefox or Chrome, I'm currently in Firefox. So if I click on Inspect Element on my page here, I get this nice little, or what at first looks a little scary, but as you get comfortable with any tool, at first it's got a little learning curve, and once you get comfortable with it, you're like, how could I have lived without this? So by default, I have this Inspector tab is the one that's selected, and I can see here that this is my HTML code. And so what we're getting to see here with our tool, and that's what's showing up here, is exactly what CSS style is being applied to this specific element. So if you're not sure why something is doing whatever it's not supposed to be doing, this is a good place to come. Let me show you how to get comfortable with this tool. So I'm going to start with this top left-hand corner. There's this little icon, and if I click on that icon and I scroll without clicking on my web page, first of all, you're going to see that this icon is allowing me to select different elements in my page, and it's highlighting it with some pretty funny looking different colors and shading, and I don't understand what all is going on. So let me see if I can help make that clear. So right now I've got this thing highlighted, and it's purple and it's blue shading, and I can see in the little pop-up box, which I don't think I can really point to because if I move my mouse it disappears, but you can see the little black pop-up window, toolkit help thing, whatever you want to call it, that says section, and it's giving me an idea that this is a section element. That's what's in purple there, and there's my width and height of this particular element. So, and that can be true for anything that I scroll over. So if I scroll over, this is a div with an ID of image 2. You can see that this is a H2, and now if I hover a little higher, there's the section, which is the parent of H2, and there's the paragraph. And so that right off the bat is giving me the ability to select a particular element that I'm kind of curious as to what's happening. So I'm going to go a little bit higher here, and where I've got the section highlighted or hovered over, and I can see that because of my little black pop-up box there, I'm going to click on that element. And immediately when I clicked on the element, my little shading disappeared, but you'll notice down here in my HTML that the section got highlighted in blue. And I could have also got to that same place or clicked on other elements here in my HTML code. So you can do the same thing. It's just two different ways to go about the same problem. So here's the section, and here's the heading, and there's the paragraph. Those are all of the things I highlighted up above there a moment ago. So let me click back on this section piece. So with the selection highlighted in blue, I can see here on the right-hand side all of the elements, all of the styles that are being applied to this section in the order in which they got applied, meaning that the order of specificity, whatever that word is that I can't pronounce. So the very first style that was applied to the section was a line height and a font family, which was provided by a body, looks like somewhere in a body tag selector I have, and there's exactly where that's located. At my style sheet on line 6, these were applied via a body selector. And if I go on up, I can see all of the styles in the order in which they were applied to that section. So I also believe that by clicking on that selection, there we go, I need to be able to see that section. Okay, so now I'm highlighting on the section again. So now I'm just highlighting in my HTML, which is still giving me that funny looking shading up in my web page. And if you look at that funny looking shading, it actually matches what's going on here. So a couple of things that we can pay attention to. Here's my box model. So in that section, in the purple in my box model depiction here, also matching the purple up in my HTML and my web page. I can't really highlight back up here, and here the purples match. And so the web page is the DevTools is trying to show me the purple padding, which is demonstrated in purple up here. If I had yellow, which I don't because I don't have a margin is set to 0, but if I had a margin on that section, it would be showing up with a yellow box around my purple box. So let's give it a margin. Let's give it a margin of 10 just so I can see that. So I can change the value here kind of as a sandbox trial and error place. So I'm changing my margin here on section to 10. So you can see now that that yellow got applied. You can see it's so hard to do this video when I can't point. But if you look in that section, you can see that there was yellow shading put around my section. So the shading matches the color scheme here, so you can have a good idea of what's being applied. So that section has a 25 pixel padding. It has 0 border. There's the width and the height and so forth. And so you can also, so that's a good way to try and determine what is pushing what element away. In other words, this section is clearly 25 padding, so that's what's giving it so much space between the text heading 1 and the section around it. So also notice here in our filter styles that padding here has a strike through. And so this is a great place to say, why isn't something being applied? So why is it apparently on CSS line 1, I gave everything a margin 0 and a padding of 0, but those got striked out because further up the style sheet, the padding got overwritten with something more specific, which is the section selector. So somewhere there's a section selector that gave this section padding of 25. So that overrode the original padding. And so where did that get overridden? Well, that got overridden on line 74. And so this gives you a great order specificity, which I hate that word, something more specific. So in other words, these are the styles that were applied at the very beginning. And then these were the styles that were added on afterwards. And if there was a conflict, which often there is, here's where the conflict took place. And so here's the style that's currently working on that section. So this is a great place to come to troubleshoot when you can't understand why something is happening. You can come into this tool and click on an element and be very clear on what styles are being applied to that element, and therefore you can have a good idea. It's a good way to get into the mind of the CSS. Why are you doing what you're doing to this particular element, or why aren't you doing what I wanted you to do? It's a good place to determine why isn't, if I'm trying to set a height, for example, on something, you can see what its relationship is with its parent, again, from being in these tools. So at first it's a little overwhelming to try and figure out these things, but once you get comfortable with the tool, it's a great place to troubleshoot to try and figure out why things are. Again, I think I made that pretty clear. Anyway, explore your dev tools and get comfortable with this. It'll really help.